For the Smash Those Small Pads collaboration this month, I picked an old Flavor of the Month kit from Scrapping for Less that has some 6x6 papers, so let's finish it off with some cards. Hey guys, it's Beth. Welcome. I decided to kind of veer a little bit from just a small pad this month for the Smash Those Small Pad collaboration. I have a goal of using up kits, and I had one more kit to use up for this year, and so I picked an old Flavor of the Month kit from Scrapping for Less that has 6x6 papers. I've already made a bunch of scrapbook pages with it, and I thought we would finish the rest of it off together with some cards. So I will flash a picture of what was originally in the kit when I started, and then we can get busy making some cards. Here are the 4 collections that came with this kit, and each kit always has a sketch sheet in it, and Teresa tries to pick sketches based on the elements that are in that kit. And so I decided to start with the sketch sheet and then can bring in some more sketches if I need them. So card number 1 is based off of sketch number 1 using that clear kind of acrylic element with the balloons on it. And then for all of my cards, I have all of my pieces pre-cut. They're just ready to build with you. And so I'm adhering the 2 pink strips kind of on the side there. And then you can see that I even made use of the very top of the pad. You can see the little hang hole there on that turquoise piece that I'm layering the tag on. And then the tag was included in the kit as well. We'll add that to my card, and all of my cards today are A2. There were some puffy balloons in the kit, and I wanted to cover up the tag hole with one, and then just decided to go ahead and use up the rest of them, kind of just to give some dimension to my focal point on the front of the card. And then the inside of the cards do have scraps of some sort. So cards number 2 through 5 are using the sketch number 2. And while the sketch does show tag elements, I am using some tiny rectangles. There was a sheet in one of the collections that had a bunch of small rectangle cut aparts, and so I decided to make use of those for this sketch. I'm adding that wide band across the card, and then I did use a scrap and a scalloped border punch to create the scalloped element. And then we'll be using 3 of the tiny little rectangles. And then I made sure that the middle rectangle in each set does have a sentiment of some kind, so that way I don't have to add a separate sentiment. And then the sketch calls for some other kind of embellishment, shape, and then the ribbon, and I'm not doing that. I'm just using the paper pieces. This is a collaboration that I do with my friend Sarah, who's Crafting and Relaxing here on YouTube, and Kathy, who is Stampin' Cat over on Instagram. And each month we're just focusing on using up paper pads that are smaller than 12 by 12 because they tend to be forgotten sometimes unless that's all you have. We tend to have a good mix of pad sizes, so we need this push to help us use up some of those smaller pads as well. Finishing up my 3rd card with this design. And I know a lot of people find those tiny little cut aparts and some of the 6x6 pads hard to use, and they are hard to use by themselves, but I have found that if you group them together, that they make an impact. So that's how I tend to use them. Either that or I just add a bunch of matte layers behind it if you really need it to stand out on its own. So there's the 3 cards, and I decided to add some sequins. Each collection had a set of sequins. I'm not very good about using sequins, but I think the only time I really think about using them are when I use these Scrapping for Less kits because they're right there in front of me. So I tried to pick 3 sequins that were a color that went with each card. So I pulled out like 3 different groups of sequins, utilized a couple different baggies of sequins that were in the kit, and then I'm just adding 3 of them around the card. I always have to lay them out before I glue them on just to see where it is I want to put them. Kind of have to audition them, if you will. And then we'll get those glued down. And then again, I do add something to the inside of each card just to add a little bit extra something, you know, a little bit of colorful surprise when you open up the card. Just like to decorate the inside as well. So I have a pile of scraps off to the left there that are left over after I had cut down all of my card pieces, and so those are what I'm trying to use up whenever I'm adding something to the insides. And I do try and make sure that, if I can, that the inside scrap coordinates with the outside. So I'm jumping down to sketch number 4 for card number 6. And I adjusted the sketch a little bit because I wasn't using a mat. I was just putting my pieces directly onto a card front. And so that's why I had to trim down that turquoise piece a little bit, because I didn't have the width or the height, I guess, right, to leave a little bit of space above that wavy stripe. So I'm using another one of the tags that came in the kit, as well as an ephemera piece, and then a little piece of candy and a Celebrate sentiment, and that card is done. So now I'm going back to sketch number 3, and I believe I have 3 of these cards as well. So this takes me up to 9, 8 or 9, I don't remember. But this sketch called for a bunch of circles, so I just tried to find some of the wider strips that I had that I could punch some. I think I used like a 1-inch circle. I almost wish I would have gone a little bigger, just because I felt like I still needed to add. There was a whole lot going on in the middle of the card, but then nothing really at the top or the bottom, and for some reason that bothered me. So I think I did end up coming back in after I had all the cards done and scraps on the inside. I had a few small scrap bits left that I added as little banner pieces at the top. I don't know if it was the patterns I'd used for the mat, but I just felt like these were missing something. So I chose like strip scraps to go for that strip going across the middle. Use some more of those tiny rectangles as the sentiment piece, just trying to use those up. And then, like I said, I have the circles that I kind of stagger around. And then we'll add these to the card bases as well. And then I decided that I had some little ice cream stickers left sitting up at the top of my screen, and so I just decided to add those on some of the more solid circles just to try and use those as well, and add just a little bit of extra fun, I guess. Most of these cards will be donated to Cards for Cubs coming up in the spring. So then I bring in one of my favorites, Operation Ride Home sketch number 25, because it uses some strip pieces. So I tend to have a lot of strips left at the end of my card making, and so this is a great sketch to just trim down the strips a little bit and get some different patterns on a card front. So I made use of, I don't know that I showed it in the picture, but each kit also came with some colored heavy-duty cardstock as well as some white heavy-duty cardstock. So the white cardstock I used as some of my normal white card bases, and then I decided to make use of some of the colored cardstock for these card bases, rather, because I was out of any pieces big enough to make a card mat, and I didn't necessarily want to use the heavy duty cardstock as a card mat, so I just decided to go ahead and use it as card base instead and bring a little color in. And then there were these balloon animal stickers that I decided to go ahead and add on some of those rectangles. And that yellow card, because it was a darker yellow, I decided to add a thinner piece of white paper on the inside for a message. And then I'm just adding my scrap on top of the white. I'm not worried about the pink. The pink is pretty light that you could write on it and it should be easy to read. And then another one of my favorites, Operation Write Home, sketch number 154. Another great one for small scraps at the end of your card making process. I just had a scrap piece of white cardstock that I cut down to be the little base for my squares here, and then decided to add that to the other half of the yellow card base that I had, and then have I think these last 3 cards are the only ones I had to bring stamped sentiments in for, and these are ones that I already had stamped in my stash, so I didn't even really have to work for them. So adding that happy birthday in the center instead of a circle element, I decided to go with the rectangle that this sentiment was. So I will add that there, and then after, I don't know, this is another one that I felt like it wasn't finished, so when all was said and done, I ended up adding a star down on that blue strip. Again, here are the 11 cards that I made with you using what I had left of the kits. And then in addition to the 11 cards, I ended up with 5 scrapbook pages and just tried to use the 6x6 paper as best I could. There were a couple layouts. I just kept them in squares, just trimmed them down so that they would kind of be framed within the cardstock of my page mat. And I did end up bringing in some summer or outdoor type embellishments from my stash that matched the colors of the papers. And just like in the cards, I kind of mixed and matched collections. So this one is very similar, just different papers. And then for the next 3, I cut my paper down into 3-inch squares, and that way I could get 4 squares from each sheet, and then just kind of mixed and matched them into a grid along the edges. I did use the enamel dots on these as well as some of the sequins, and then I also used sequins on these layouts as well. I used up, I think, all of the enamel dots that, or the green, at least the green ones that were in the kit. And then again, did bring in some additional embellishments that talked about playing outside. So those are my 5 layouts and my 11 cards. Again, please be sure to check out the links for Kathy and Sarah in the description box below. Thank you guys so very much for your time today, and hope you all have a very crafty day.